What's going on, everyone? Shane here, and I am going to be debunking some of the comments on social media regarding my piece on NBC, where I said that any household other than a man and a woman in a marriage, in a loving relationship, actually, I said, raising a child, any deviation from that is an unstable household. And so I specifically said two men thinking that they can be parents, two women thinking that they can be parents, adopting a child, whether it's through straight up adoption or using surrogacy, IVF, whatever the case is, it automatically creates an unstable household. NBC posted this reel last night. It's already approaching 500,000 views. Go figure, hundreds, if not thousands of comments just hating. Obviously, their news station isn't exactly conservative or pro-Jesus Christ and traditional values, but some of the comments, which people don't realize or maybe they don't care, that it was a 40-minute interview almost, where I dropped statistics, where I gave supporting data and evidence, but they're saying, well, where's the data? Where's the statistics? You quoted a statistic and you never mentioned it. Don't they know that these people clip up things? I mean, everyone does it. So this video, I'm going to debunk myself. Did I tell the truth? Was I right? We'll watch the clip and I will give you the numbers and we'll see if the statement I made holds true. And here's the claim, that an LGTBQ household automatically creates an unstable environment for children. Hey guys, I'm Shane Winnings. I aim to give a biblical worldview of a world that's not so biblical. Let's get into it. All right, so here we go. Here's the clip of my interview with NBC, and then I will break it down using the numbers. Let's watch.
Are you seeing more young men, Gen Z, come into the church?
Yeah, we are.
Here we are.
For Shane Winnings, who leads the national men's ministry group Promise Keepers,
what kind of man are you?
It's all part of a bigger strategy.
I think it's very intentional. And I think the messaging from the administration was very intentional.
The Trump administration.
Yeah, it was to win those kind of people.
Who?
And the young people, the men who want to be men.
If you fear culture, then you don't fear God.
Men who want to, or can be convinced to, return to what he calls traditional values.
What we're seeing in this erosion where now anyone can be a family. Two men can be a family and they can adopt kids, which I think is problematic. Two women could be a family, they can adopt kids. Marriage doesn't mean anything anymore.
What threat is that to you if those two men love each other?
Because you can point statistically to our society being eroded from within because two men automatically create an unstable household, because that is not God's design for a family.
And you think that hurts America?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a minute. Let me get to some statistics here. So first, we're going to talk about just the LGBTQ community, which I'm not coming against them. I'm not hating on them. Obviously, as a Christian, I believe it's a sin. Just like lying's a sin, just like drunkenness is a sin, just like gambling's a sin, just like perversion is a sin. So I'm not harping on a specific one, but this happens to be a sin that people have made a lifestyle out of, that people celebrate and are prideful about, and that's currently in a national spotlight and in my interview. So first, we're just going to look at the LGBTQ community, specifically men, and then we're going to look at LGBTQ households versus traditional households. So, in regards to depression, LGBTQ men, studies peg depression as a significant issue. A 2021 NIMH-led study using U.S. National Survey on Drug Use and Health data found that gay and bisexual men had a 12 to 17% prevalence of suicidal thoughts in the past year, often tied to depression. The Trevor Project's 2023 survey of LGBTQ youth, ages 13 to 24, including young men, reported that 58% experienced depressive symptoms. Nearly two-thirds of transgender and non-binary men specifically. Older data from the early 2000s showed that gay and bisexual men had higher rates of major depression than straight men, a trend that is holding steady. So, fact check number one. Men who are in this alternative lifestyle are at a higher rate of depression and suicide. You put a child in a household of a person who is at a statistically much higher rate of depression and suicide, I would call that an unstable home. I would say that that stat alone supports my claim, but let's keep going. Straight men. Comparatively, straight men are doing better in this area, although straight men do struggle with anxiety, depression, and suicide. It is the number one killer of men. Men struggle with suicide at a rate of over 4 times that of women. We make up 80% of the suicides in America. It is awful. But straight men, 6 to 8%. So half of the LGBTQ community. And when you get to trans, it's even worse. It's amplified. But when we're just talking about gay or bisexual, it is double that of a straight man. 6 to 8% in the past year, suicidal thoughts linking to depression. Again, roughly half of the gay and bisexual community. General U.S. adult depression rates hover around 7%. Men are typically lower than women in depression, but I think that this is non-reporting, again, because men in their own lives at a rate of 4 times that of women. So they're underreporting, they're over-executing, literally executing themselves. It's horrific. But it spikes when you get to the LGBTQ community. Again, you have a straight man, he is less likely to end his own life than a homosexual man or a bisexual man. They're going to be more stable. And we'll get into some of the nuances of this topic and some of the more specific issues that support those numbers than just the numbers themselves. Gay and bisexual men are 2 to 3 times more likely to experience depression than straight men. This is a study from 2003 and UCL's 2023 analysis of English adults, where LGB men were over twice as likely to report mental distress. Now let's talk about anxiety. LGTBQ men, anxiety is hitting them hard as well. 73% of LGTBQ young men reported anxiety symptoms. 3/4 of trans and non-binary men specifically. A 2020 study noted that homosexual men had an average PHQ score of 8.8, which is moderate depression and anxiety, versus 7.7 for straight men. So that's 1.1 points higher. And bisexuals were at 13. UCL's 2023 study flagged lesbian gay men as 2.5 times more likely to have anxiety than heterosexuals. So again, you are talking about, when we talk about 2 men in a home raising a child, both of them are at much higher rates for anxiety, depression, and self-harm and ending their own lives than straight men. Straight men's anxiety rates are lower. Around 30 to 40% of U.S. men report lifetime anxiety symptoms, but annual prevalence is closer to 10 to 15%. LGBTQ men face anxiety at 1.5 to 2.5 times the rate of straight men. So it is 2 to 3 times higher for LGBTQ men. Suicide rates, LGBTQ men. The Trevor Project in 2023 found 11% of LGBTQ men attempted within the past year. Trans and non-binary men were at 14 to 18%. A 2023 Canadian study using linked health data pegged gay and lesbian men at 664 suicide-related events per 100,000. Bisexual men were at 6,000 events per 100,000. So almost 10 times higher for a bisexual man versus 224 for straight men. So again, if you're a straight man, the suicide rate is 1/3 of that of gay men, and it is 30 times less than a bisexual male. Historical data showed that gay men are 6 times more likely to attempt suicide than straight men. Now, let's talk about the family unit, because that was really my main point. And I said the erosion from within. So in the comments, people are like, well, how is that affecting you? Well, I'm not talking about myself. And the conversation was not about Shane Winnings. The conversation was about America. It was about Gen Z turning to Jesus, Gen Z finding religion through conservative movements and conservative values. And I was speaking on the state of the nation. And I am showing how statistically, when we progress in this direction of LGTBQ and promoting LGTBQ households, we are actually endorsing the statistics that are in favor of people being more depressed, more anxious, and more suicidal. And so I said this, and this wasn't in the final cut, go figure, but I said, take my religion out of it. If you just go by the numbers, you would never promote anyone to go down the LGBTQ road, never go down the trans road, never go down the surrogacy road, because by the numbers, it is worse for the individual, it's worse for the family, and it's worse for the nation. If you just by the numbers wanted to create the most stable household and the most stable country, you would push for the traditional family unit. I said, take my faith out of it. That's what the numbers say. And I'll show you here right now. We'll get into the numbers. Okay, here we go with the stats for households and families, which is what I was talking about. But I wanted to make a case that as individuals, people who go down these paths of life, these alternate lifestyles, are at higher risks of mental issues. So they are more inclined, more likely to be subjected and to give into mental problems, and to the point of taking their own lives or harming themselves. So as an individual, you have to understand where these people are at mentally as they try to pursue a lifestyle based on their sexuality. So let's talk about family units. 2-parent married households and child outcomes. Here we go. Children raised by married biological parents, so their mom, their dad, tend to have better outcomes across multiple domains. Studies show they're less likely to face poverty. They have an 8.4% poverty rate in that family versus 37% in a single parent home. Again, God's design is not that one parent should be raising children. It should be a mom and a dad. So when it's a single parent home, it's almost 5 times more likely that they're going to grow up in poverty. They achieve higher education levels. They have lower rates of behavioral issues like delinquency or teen pregnancy. This was a study done by McClanahan and Sandifer in 1994. Now, I'm not just talking about the LGBTQ community. I made a statement that any deviation from a man and a woman raising a child creates an unstable household, and that includes 2 men, that includes 2 women. But I'm not just picking on the LGBTQ community. I'm also saying, man, we need men to step up and be men and be good husbands. We need men to step up and be men and be good fathers and not abandon their families, which I also said in that interview, which didn't make it into the final cut. Go figure. So that's why at Promise Keepers, we are trying to get to the root of the issue, which is the heart of men, to pick a good woman to be his wife and to love her like Jesus loved the church, not lord over her, right? Not tell her what to do. But when you pick a good woman and you pursue the Lord with her and you raise a family with her, like I'm doing with my wife, we love each other. We're raising 2 boys in a loving home. We love our kids. Statistically, our family's going to do better. Our kids are going to do better. We want the men of America to be like that. Honestly, I want the men of America to imitate what I'm doing, which is I'm pursuing God daily. I'm trying to pursue my family daily. I'm trying to raise my family in the ways of the Lord. I'm being a priest, provider, and protector. That is what I talked about in the interview, which also didn't make it. And so any deviation from that by the numbers sets people up for failure. So single parent household, and listen, it's not always up to you. Sometimes your spouse changes. Sometimes they just bail on you. Sometimes they do horrific things. Sometimes they pass away. But the point is the numbers show that God's design, a man and a woman raising a family in a loving household, is the best possible thing for our world. Now, a 2022 study noted that children in an intact married home are 1.5 times less likely to experience financial hardship. They are 6 to 15 times less likely to witness violence or substance abuse compared to those in a non-traditional setup. Now, let's talk about instability in a non-traditional family structure. Research highlights that family transitions, which include breakups, new partners, they harm a child's well-being. A 2019 study found that 31% of children under 6 years old experienced a major household change, whether it was divorce, a cohabitation shift, new partners moving in, whatever, over 3 years. And that was linked to higher stress and poorer outcomes. Sexually mixed families face similar risks due to societal pressures and relationship fluidity. Cohabitating households, which include some same-sex couples, are less stable than married ones. So just two adults cohabitating, living together, shacking up. Data from a 2019 study shows that cohabitating couples with children are 2 to 3 times more likely to dissolve within 3 years than married couples. That impacts a child's security, unstable household. A 2020 analysis argued that children raised by both biological parents in a low-conflict marriage have a developmental edge, with adjusted odds ratios showing 1.5 to almost 5 times lower emotional problems compared to those with fewer or no biological parents. So kids being raised by their mom and dad, biological mom and dad, they are less likely to go into the world as adults with a ton of emotional baggage. And the problem is, and this is what I'm talking about, the erosion from within, is when we promote these unstable households, when we promote anything outside of a man and a woman raising a family, we are not just talking about that family, but we are talking about the next generation, because we are creating adults that have more emotional baggage unnecessarily. It doesn't have to happen. The absence of a biological mom or dad, as in some same-sex setups, was linked to worse outcomes, particularly when the father was missing. Sexually mixed families, by definition, often involve at least one non-biological parent via adoption, surrogacy, prior relationships. And that potentially reduces the statistical biological parent advantage tied to traditional units. It's just the way it is. 2 dads cannot have a child. 2 moms cannot make a child. You've got to have a mom and a dad. And so either they're doing IVF and surrogacy, they're adopting, they're bringing kids from a former relationship, they are introducing children into an unstable household. Now, what I'm not saying is that everyone who's in the LGTBQ community has mental problems, or there is never a case where there's a stable family. I'm saying by the numbers, statistically, over the course of time, looking at all of the examples, these households, these children are at a great disadvantage, and they will grow up with lasting issues. Number 4, you can't forget the social and cultural stressors. Minority stress theory suggests that sexual minority parents face chronic societal prejudice. I think that's natural. 2 dads is against what we've always done. You're going to get strange looks. You're going to have people with opinions. That's because it's not natural. It's not God's way. We shouldn't look at 2 dads raising a kid and go, oh, that's beautiful. We should go, that's really sad because that kid has a mom somewhere and they're not with them. Or 2 moms. Oh, that's really sad. That kid has a dad somewhere and they're being raised by 2 moms. Like, it's not right. No matter how much you want to make it try to seem normal, it is not right. It's not normal. There was a man and a woman who came together to make that child, and they should be raising their children for the duration of their lives. And that's why divorce hurts children, abuse hurts children. And I'm not just talking about, obviously, the abuse of the children, but abuse within a relationship. Like, we need godly parents to raise godly kids. And if it's a true godly family, they will follow the Bible, which does not endorse any type of abuse, physical, sexual, verbal, emotional, none of it. It raises you to be loving like Christ loved the church. And people will watch this video and say, well, you're not loving, you're hating against LGBTQ. No, I'm not hating on anyone. I am pointing out that one, it's a sinful behavior, and two, the consequences of sin can be shown by the numbers. That the family unit is not as good and actually harmful to our society and to the children of our society as they grow up with emotional baggage. So looking at the stats, poverty rates, traditional married home, 8.4% poverty rate. Single parent home, almost 30% poverty rate when it's a single mom. 20% poverty rate when it's a single dad. Same-sex couple households, 12 to 15% poverty rate according to a 2019 Williams Institute study. So it is 1.5 to almost 2 times more likely that a child growing up in a same-sex home will be in poverty. Relationship dissolution. Married opposite-sex couples, 15% divorce rate within 10 years. That's the current stat. Cohabitating, just shacking up, they dissolve at 2 times the rate of married couples. So about 30% chance, almost 1 in 3, that cohabitating couples will dissolve within 10 years. And then when you look at same sex, it's even higher than that. Child emotional health. Kids with married biological parents have the lowest rate of emotional problems. Kids with 1 or no biological parents, including same-sex setups, have 1.5 to 5 times higher odds of emotional issues. Here's the takeaway. Some same-sex families do great. We're not denying that. But the stats suggest that traditional units have built-in stability, especially when it is both biological parents, a man and a woman, reproducing their own children, raising those children. All of the numbers point to that being the best possible scenario, which means when you introduce other variations, you are creating instability. And the numbers show, not only in the family unit, but in the individuals, that when the variations you introduce are LGTBQ, the numbers spike. So you've got people who are in the highest percentile in the world for anxiety, depression, and suicide coming together to try to raise a family of a child that's not theirs or half their. It doesn't work. And even more so, outside of the statistics, you look at the mental aspect of this. You look at a child being raised without his dad or raised without his mom, even in a traditional sense, you saw in the single family, it's wrong. And when you create a household that's 2 moms or 2 dads, that is not God's design. The children are going to suffer. And as a result, our generation is going to suffer. The generation after us is going to suffer. And when that happens, those are the people who become the leaders of our day. You know, this next generation is going to grow up. They're going to be voting members. Then they're going to be holding positions of leadership throughout society. And they have the most emotional baggage. They grew up in broken homes. I think the numbers support my statements. What do you think? Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comments section. Was I right? Did I miss it? Make sure you like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Appreciate you guys. And hopefully we get another shot at a national spotlight and we can continue to support dads and husbands who are raising their families in the ways of God all across the world, specifically here in America where I live. All right, guys, thanks for watching. God bless. We'll see you next time.